All right, let's deal with this. So the OQLF directive, of course, over English healthcare or access to it in our healthcare and social services sector, raised a lot of eyebrows on the English side because that directive, of course, laid out some very strange scenarios that were later basically, I guess, refuted by Language Minister Jean-François Roberge when I had him on Friday afternoon, because when I asked him point blank, will you not be able to get services in English? Will you need to show an English eligibility certificate? He basically said no, which seemed to allay everyone's fears, and by everyone I mean no one's, except apparently for mine, because am I taking him at his word? He told a meeting yesterday with some English language groups in the city, in the province, that they go back because of the concern that we all have. He'd go back and they take a look at the document again. He didn't say they discard it. He said they would try to clarify some things. But then this morning, I heard Anthony Koch, who's a former national spokesperson for Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and a principal now at AK Strategies, when asked about this, say this.
I think it speaks to a long-standing issue that I've had with what I'll call the organized English-speaking community in Montreal, where we're more concerned with crying, screaming, itching with a B and moaning than we are with actually getting results, where we actually see, in this case, taking the time to do consultations to clarify based on concerns that have been raised from the community. And when they're offered the opportunity to actually sit down with the minister responsible and have a conversation, they say, no, we want more. And I think when the government gives us an inch, you should take it instead of spitting in their face and telling them, give me a mile.
Okay. Anthony Koch is on the line. Anthony, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Who you say? I mean, who do we look to then if we don't look to the Quebec Community Groups Network as a group representing Anglos in this province?
That's a great question. I think this is part of the problem. Once upon a time, before my time, there were groups like Alliance Quebec, et cetera, that sort of took up this mantle. I know QCGN is trying to revive that sort of spirit, but I think the bigger issue, in many respects, there's generational divides in the English-speaking community, but even beyond that, there's just, I think, a lot of folks in our community that would rather complain, stomp their feet, and throw fists in the air and scream about the big, bad, evil Quebec government than actually take a more pragmatic and logical approach to engaging with governments, some of which may not always have the same positions on language that we do, and try to actually get some serious policy wins, right? I have this issue with my clients all the time. I tell them, do you want to be right? Do you want to feel good about yourself? Or do you want to win? And sometimes you get all three. Sometimes you get two out of the three. But the one that you should always prioritize is actual objectives with firm policy objectives that can be actioned on, not just writing angry op-eds in the Montreal Gazette or waving and punching your fists on interviews on CJAD, quite frankly.
So does that mean, if we're talking about pragmatic, it would be wonderful in a real world, if you could actually say, we'd like to talk to the government about this, or that. It doesn't happen that way, though. The government chooses who it will talk to, when it will talk to them, and they don't seem to be concerned more often than not enough to talk to someone in the English community. And I take this most recent example of the OQLF directive. It took enough pushback from the Anglo community to finally get someone to pay attention to this. So are we being unreasonable?
And can you imagine now, let's paint a different perspective, because I know how it works inside ministers' offices and otherwise. They're going, here's the QCGN, an organization composed of people who hate us, talk mad smack about us daily, will never vote for us no matter what we do. And they could have easily chosen to ignore the English-speaking community in Montreal, which many political parties do. There's certain constituencies they know they're never going to win, and they say, whatever, throw in the towel. Instead, imagine if the QCGN would have attended this meeting and surprised everybody by actually sitting down with the minister in a collaborative sort of way and talking it out and getting some real wins. Yes, obviously, there's a dance here. I'm not going to pretend that the government's doing this out of the benevolence of their own hearts. But at the end of the day, does that really matter? Do you want to get a win for the English-speaking community and make sure that our seniors and other people in our community that are vulnerable have access to English-speaking care, which by all indications it appears the government's seeking to clarify to do that? Build some sort of collaborative approach and relationship with the government, even though we're not going to agree on everything, but where the QCGN can actually be used as a resource that the government looks upon to get the pulse in the English-speaking community? Or do you just want to be another one of a long list of organizations and groups that scream into the wind and are absolutely impossible to deal with? Because look, we want a meeting, we want a meeting, we want a meeting. Here's your meeting. Nope, that's not the meeting we want. We want another meeting. And then, then we're going to meet with minister today, and then they're going to scream that they want Oswald to go to in the meeting too. It's like, at what point do you just stop the roughhousing, stop the indignation, and actually get stuff done?
But so let me ask a question then. The idea that the QCGN chose not to show up had to do with the fact that, of course, the health minister, Christian Dubé, was not going to be at the meeting. Your suggestion is they should have gone, listened to Jean-François Roberge. But I will tell you, in my conversation with him, he actually said, you know what, I'm not really in the health sector. That's not my portfolio, if you will. That's the health minister, kind of giving you the impression that, you know what, there's only so much he can do. That being the case, wouldn't it be necessary to talk to the person who can affect those changes? Why is that asking too much?
Well, apparently it's not. And there's a difference between a minister giving an answer in an interview where he's skating and doesn't have a good answer and then going back and getting a better one before he can come back to you a second time and demanding a meeting. At the end of the day, Minister Dubé is not the one responsible for this. Yes, there's repercussions for the healthcare system, and he is the minister responsible for health, but this law, fundamentally, is not under his purview, was not proposed by his ministry, and will not be implemented by his ministry either. So again, if you want a meeting with Minister Dubé, call for a meeting with Minister Dubé. And if they don't give you that, then make us think about it. But you got offered a meeting with the minister responsible for the piece of legislation that you are upset with. They preemptively reached out, I know, yes, after pressure from the community that deserves to be recognized, but said, hey, we heard your concerns. We want to sit down with you, talk it through, because clearly there's issues with our legislation. We want to hear from you guys so that we can figure it out and fix it. And we said no. Stomped their feet, put their fists in the air, like I said, and went home. And again, the next time it comes for the government to consult, or the next time the QCGN makes a fuss about something, I think the government's just going to say, oh, it's a bunch of upset ninnies from Montreal. What's in it for us? What are we even going to get out of this from sitting down with them? We're going to sit down with them, or maybe they won't even sit down with us again. They're going to complain, and no matter what we do, they're still going to say that we're not doing enough, and they're just going to rage against us anyway. So you just become the person who's always yelling in the background and not an actual constructive partner that people feel they can work with.
Anthony, is it always about politically what's in it for us?
I think when you're a group that represents a specific community and is trying to advance that community's interests through government, that you should probably prioritize your ability to actually effectuate that change in the most effective possible way. This is what I said. If the English-speaking community in Montreal wants an organization that represents their interests and actually successfully gets the things we care about done, that's one thing. If they want an organization that yells at the cloud, has absolutely zero influence, and is systematically ignored by those in power, then that's fine too. We can all feel really great about ourselves and lose over and over and over again.
Last question, because I got to run out of time here. With respect to what is going to happen with this bill, with Jean-François Roberge, do you sense there will be any change at all?
I suspect. I think the big issue here is that they don't know what's in their own law. And this is the one major criticism that is 1,500% legitimate of the government. How do you not know what your law instructs specific ministries to do? So I think there was some unclear wording here. Some people got carried away. They realized, yeah, this is kind of nonsensical. We're going to go back and clarify this. But I suspect that in very short order, it will be made very clear that no one's going to have to pull an historic Anglo certificate out of their back pocket in order to be served in English at a hospital in Quebec.
So when that doesn't change, and in fact you will have to present that certificate, I'm going to call you back and have you eat your words, okay?
Absolutely.
Fair enough.
Please do.
Anthony Koch, former national spokesperson for Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Thanks so much for the time, Anthony. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.